Welcome to the video for lesson 11B. I can create a sample space for a given event using a tree diagram. So if you remember the last lesson, we looked at events and the different outcomes they had, and we said the best way to do it was to just make a list or to make a grid. Another strategy is to use something called a tree diagram, and that is what we'll talk about today. So just the vocab to start with. A tree diagram is just a visual organizer used with events that have a large number of outcomes. So the best time to use a tree diagram is when you have a lot of outcomes. So on the homework, you had one about tossing a coin 4 times. So if you think about that one, it could be heads, 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 heads. It could be heads, 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 tails. It could be heads, and there's going to be so many options that you're going to lose track. And maybe you even struggled with that while you worked on it on the homework. So another way to organize the same type of problem is a tree diagram. So here's what it looks like right down here. You can see that there are different branches. So these would be called branches. These are going to be outcomes right here. And then these are going to be more outcomes. So these don't stand for anything yet, but at the end of this, we could say, well, one thing that could happen is A and then C. Kind of like how we had sausage and milk or sausage and orange juice, that kind of thing. This is A and then D, this is B and then C, this is B and then D. So it's a way to organize things that have a lot of outcomes, or maybe there's more than one event or something like that. Okay? A dart player, so here's an example. A dart player is trying to hit the bullseye with each of the 3 darts that he will throw. Each dart will either hit the bullseye or miss the bullseye. So we have 2 possibilities. We're either going to hit or miss. Okay? We're going to use a tree diagram to give the sample space for the different outcomes that may occur. So what we want to do is just start with the first event. So in this one, we have 3 darts, which means we're going to throw all 3. That means we have 3 events. This one has 3 events. Throw 1, throw 2, and throw 3. So if you think about throw 1, we are either going to hit or we're going to miss. So we're throwing our first dart. It either hit or it missed the target. Okay? Now, regardless of whether we hit or missed on the first dart, when we throw the second dart, we're going to either hit or miss the target. So if we hit, we might hit or miss, or if we miss, we might hit or miss. So this is throw 1, this is throw 2. We need one more throw. We're going to throw one more time. We're either going to hit or miss. We're going to throw here, hit or miss, and then 2 more times here, hit or miss, and hit or miss. Okay, so that would be our throw number 3. Okay, so there's our tree diagram, and you don't have to use the 1, 2, and 3 at the top. Just the tree diagram with the labels would be good enough. So when we talk about what the sample space is and how many different outcomes there were, we use the tree diagram to answer that. So remember in the last lesson we talked about when we're listing a sample space, we use those curly brackets. I'm just going to go through the list here. I could hit and then hit and then hit like that. So one of the options is we hit the bullseye on all 3 throws. Okay, that's this one. We went hit, hit, hit. Okay, another one is that we could, so I'm going to work my way down. I'm going to go hit, hit, miss. So that would be another one. Or we could hit the first one and miss the second one and hit the third one. Right? So we can continue this. I'm just copying what we have here. So here's where I am right now. Hit, miss, miss. Right? So there's my top 4 right there. So if you can tell on my diagram, okay, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 things in that last row. Well, that means that there's 8 different outcomes, and I just have to continue to follow the branches to figure it out. So the 4 that I have listed down here are the 4 that start with H. Now I'm on the ones that start with M. So I'm going to just start at the top, start with the ones going up and then work my way down. So miss, and then a hit, and then a hit. Miss, hit, miss. We have miss, miss, hit. And one more. Miss, miss, miss. We could miss all of them. Okay, let me scroll down a bit. There we go. So you can see that. So that would be every possibility for this scenario. And there's a total, like we said, of 8 outcomes. We'll try a couple more of them, and we will see how that's working. Feel free at any point to try to work ahead. Pause the video and see if you can figure it out by yourself, and then go ahead and play it to see the answer. Okay? So let's try another one. Suppose you work at a small deli. The deli offers 4 types of meat and 3 types of bread. We're going to use a tree diagram to figure out how many different versions of sandwiches your customers could make. So let's just make a little key over here. So we have ham as a possibility. We're going to call that H. We have turkey. We have roast beef. And we have pastrami. For the bread options, we have white. Let's see, I have another W here. Let's just call it WH for wheat. And we have R. We haven't used R yet for rye. So sometimes it's good to use a little key just so I know what you're talking about on some of these. Okay, so let's go ahead and give this one a shot. So we have to pick our meat first. Let's say we did it that way. We could just as easily do the bread first. It doesn't matter. So for our first event, we are picking the meat. So there are 4 options for that. And one of them is ham. One of them is turkey. Let me just start over on this one. I don't like how I wrote that. So there's going to be 4 options here. That's a little bit better. Okay, so we can either get ham, turkey, roast beef, or pastrami. Okay, on each one of those, we could get one of 3 types of bread: white, wheat, and rye. So each one of these gets 3 branches: white, wheat, rye. And I'm getting a little bit scrunched. Let me see if zooming in helps. We could do white. I'll zoom back out. White just doesn't have an H on it. Wheat and rye. And white, wheat, and rye. Let me zoom out now. Okay, so there's my tree diagram for this scenario. If you count these up, there are 12 outcomes at the end, and that'll be a question. So this column right here has 12 outcomes, or 12 things listed in that column. That means there's 12 different ways to order a sandwich at this deli. Okay, so the sample space, I'm just going to list it here this time so you see what we can do. I'm going to say above. All right. One thing you can do on the tree diagrams is just list them right here at the end. So this is one of the options: a ham on white, a ham on wheat, a ham on rye. That's 3 of them. You can get a turkey on wheat. You can get a turkey on, or sorry, that's white. A turkey on wheat or a turkey on rye. You can get a roast beef on white. You can get a roast beef on wheat. You can get a roast beef on rye. And last one, You can get a pastrami on white, wheat, or rye. And this is now my sample space. That's every single different sandwich that we could make. How many different outcomes? This time there was 12. Okay? Again, if I scroll too fast, just pause and make sure you have everything copied down. All right, let's move on. I think we have one more today, and then we will call it good. Okay? So a music store has 3 different keyboards. It has 2 different trumpets and 2 different guitars. Use a tree diagram to figure out how many different displays the store could make if they want to showcase one of each type of instrument. Okay, this one's tough because if you have 3 different keyboards, how do you label that? You can't use the letter K for all of them. So here's one thing you could do. You can make any kind of key that you want, but here's one thing you could do. So let's say we were going to pick the keyboards first. There's 3 different keyboards we got to worry about. So let's make a branch, a tree diagram with 3 branches right away. Let's just call them K1, K2, and K3. That's a simple way to do it. If you feel like you're not sure what to use for the letters, as long as you put a key to it, I'll know what you're talking about. It won't be a big deal. So then let's do the same thing for trumpets. After we pick a keyboard, no matter which keyboard we pick, we're going to have 2 different types of trumpets. So I'm going to say T1 and T2, T1 and T2, T1 and T2. Okay, and then there's 2 different types of guitars. So we've done this part, we've done this part, and now we're going to do the 2 different guitars. Okay, so I'm going to call those G1 and G2. So we have G1 and G2. Same things here. We have G1 and G2. Sometimes you run out of room a little bit, so just do your best to make it look good. We have G1 and G2. Oops, messed that up. We have G1 and G2 here. And same thing down here. Let me see if I can do this. Okay. Same thing. 2 more of these. We have G1 and G2, and we have G1 and G2. Okay. Again, we could count up how many we have. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 different outcomes for this one. This one, yep, it does ask how many different displays are possible. So we just counted that out, and that's 12. They didn't ask for the sample space anywhere, so I'm not going to list it out again. Again, to get one of the items in the sample space, you can just follow one branch. So K1, T1, and G1. So one of them would be K1, T1, G1. Okay, you don't have to list them all out this time because they didn't ask for the sample space. If they ask for the sample space, we're going to want you to write it out. So that's a little bit about how tree diagrams go. Now it gets a little bit tougher in some other cases, and that'll be part of what we talk about when we look at trying the homework. So you have enough to try it. We know how to create a sample space using a tree diagram. That was the new thing today. And go ahead and give it your best shot. Thanks for watching. Pages 3 and 4 of the homework.